Alright, a little different from my normal videos, but here I've got a 1958 Evinrude Fast Twin 18. I picked it up to put it on this project boat that I'm working on right here. And this is one of the biggest learning curves for me in getting into the boating world. This is the first boat I've ever owned, and this is the first outboard I've ever owned. Also the first two-stroke I've ever owned. From everything I can tell, and from the previous owner, it seems like it's in pretty good shape. It runs well. Other than that, it's just a 70-year-old, really cool project. The boat that it's going on is a 1959. With this being my first outboard, didn't realize it's a short shaft and that my boat needs a little over 20 inches. So the next thing I'm going to undertake is converting this to a long shaft by adding this spacer in here. I found all of the original parts on eBay. Hopefully I have everything I need for extended water tube. Got a long shift shaft, a long drive shaft, and a couple other pieces in here. So this video is just me going through it, trying to do a conversion the first time ever. Any input that you got, I'm all here for it. In the very least, I'll learn plenty about this motor while I'm putting it back together. I do acknowledge that I'm completely new to this process, completely new to the boating world. So forgive any mistakes I have in terminology or how I do things. This is not a how-to video, it's just what I'm doing on this thing. It's my little side project. I really like cool old stuff, and I think this is pretty cool, and it's really old. So I'm gonna do what I can to stick it on my boat. Pretty sure the first step is to drain the oil out of the lower unit, so I'm gonna start with that. I had a couple drops of water that came out at the beginning, and some pretty thick sludge looking stuff first. I just remember seeing this in a video. This shift linkage needs to come out first. There's the inside of it right there. I'm gonna start by trying to undo this bolt, see if that works. I didn't even realize the drive shaft would come out with it, but that makes it a lot easier. Alright, first thoughts. I'm pretty sure this is the rod, the shift rod, and then I'm gonna have to take the very bottom, the gear case, I don't know what this is called, to take this off. This is the water pickup tube that I ordered, but looking in here at this one, they're pretty close to the same length. So I might try to pull this one out and take a look at them, but I don't know how that... They're different inner diameters, it looks like. So not really sure how that's supposed to work. But I do know I need to replace the impeller, and that looks like the easiest thing, so I'm gonna start with that. Yep, there's the impeller. There's drive shaft. What it looks like is that here with this new impeller kit, there's 3 new screws, thankfully, because I almost stripped one of them out. There's a key right there, which I'm thinking is this little bitty key right here in the drive shaft that keeps the drive shaft underneath the impeller. And I think that lines up with the new one. There's no key in this one. So side by side, we got old drive shaft and new drive shaft. Hopefully drive shaft is the correct word for this. But it seems pretty simple from here. Just got to replace the impeller. I have to figure out how to get this shift shaft replaced, and And the only other pieces that I need to replace are the connector that's in there that connects the hand shifter to this actual piece right here. So I can reuse that hardware hopefully. Got this piece, obvious spacer, and then this one, which has something to do with the exhaust, I think. Alright, turns out this is not the right size. It's the exact same size as the one that's in there, so I gotta order a new one. Also found the exhaust mount, and not really sure why this is a part that needs to get replaced, but there's one bolt for it right there, and it sits right in here. So I'm gonna have to separate the motor from like the mounting portion of this, take it all off to get access to that exhaust mount right there. Had to get the prop off, and I've got these 6 screws out, which don't know why you'd use flathead screws, but they're out. Basically figured out you gotta split the gear case and possibly take all the gears out to be able to get the shift rod out. It runs through like a seal right here on the inside. You gotta pull it up this way. Take this back out. Had it out earlier thinking it was gonna loosen the rod. It's just like that. Okay, here we go. Not as clean as I was hoping it would look. There's a seal right here that meets up with this seal right here, and I think I am gonna pull this out and replace it. I'm gonna wait to get a new one before I pull it out, but definitely gonna need to wipe down all this in here. I'm gonna look up this gasket or seal or whatever I want to call it on eBay, see if I can get one in here. If not, I might have to make do, which I hate doing. But okay, so that pin that we took out went through here. Pull that up. Should be able to. That slides off. Just kind of mounts up in there. And then here's the shift shaft that needs to come out, and looks like the gears are gonna have to come out. I really hope I can put all this back together. Alright, what I would call the equivalent of a differential for a boat motor. Now we can pull the shift lever right out. Nice. There we go. And all I gotta do is hope that that seal down there is not leaking. But here's shift lever out. There's a cotter pin right here, so I'm gonna take that out, get this cleaned up and transferred to the new long shaft shift lever, and then clean all this stuff up. Might as well, I'm looking at it, take the pinion gear out too. There's that, comes out with the washer. Yeah, I'm probably just going to be now cleaning all of this up since I've got it open. I'm putting it back together. I realized that the yoke is backwards, so I have to take it off, put it back on. So from here, I've got this back together. Like I said, I'm going to try to find a gasket, a new gasket for this one, for this bottom piece. And then from there, put it all back together. Got the long shift shaft in here. Forgot the pinion gear. Cool. Now I'm gonna go back to trying to get that water tube out of the exhaust. All right, I finally got the old water tube out. It was in there about right there. and it was really hard. Ended up kind of bending it a little bit using basically the end of those pliers to just pull it out. Hopefully I have this one in there long enough, and it is accessible. At least you can see it from the little linkage window right here. So now I'm going ahead and putting on the spacer. Revisiting the extended exhaust mount though, I'm not gonna switch out. Basically, talking to all the wisdom on Facebook, they basically said that the only purpose of this, if it is any different, is to handle a little bit extra stress with a greater moment of 5 inches added, you know, for the prop. But the problem is it's in here, and it would be easy to get, I think it's called the power head, separated from the tiller section of this, because there's one mount here, one on the other side. There's a mount here, one on the other side, a mount back here, but then there's these two bolts right here that are flathead bolts that go all the way through. The number of flathead bolts on this thing is killing me. I don't know how you could possibly get these out, but they're super tight and I can't get these out. Otherwise I would change this out. But again, all the Facebook pros have said that when they convert to a long shaft, that they don't ever remember changing this mount out. So I'm not going to do it. Hopefully it won't affect anything. I really can't see, it fits like right here. I really can't see how this would affect anything, again, besides maybe the extra stress. Even a different angle, I don't know. So if anyone knows, put it in the comments please. If worst case, I can come change this later, but these two bolts are stuck, so no luck there. I got this seal that I'm pretty sure I need. I'm gonna make sure it fits. It's called a spaghetti seal. You can buy it by the foot. I got 4 feet of it for like $5 on eBay, and then picked it up here locally. I went ahead and put the extension onto the shift shaft, but I'm realizing I think this may be enough. Like comparing it to here, I think this is gonna end up being too long, but we'll see. All right, this old one, I think it's probably just that it's been in there so long. It's got kind of a square shape to it, compared to this is just looks like a piece of spaghetti. But it looks like it has a little bit of room in there. Hopefully that's not too much room. I'm gonna go with it and see how it does. It at least does, can't really see on the camera, but it does stick up. Like you can feel it sticking up over here. Compared to this, is kind of smushed flat. So thinking, yeah, it goes up against a flat surface, so this should get smushed down plenty. So I'm gonna go ahead and pull this out. You know, if I didn't say it already, this is not the part number that's listed in the catalog. And if it works, I'll put the part number that I'm using as a substitute. Next, I gotta get this pin lined up. Lines up perfect. I ran into a problem putting all this together yesterday because I couldn't get the drive shaft down far enough, so I ended up having to take off the bottom, the very bottom end, the lower unit again, taking out the gears, and I realized that the shaft, let's see, was not meeting all the way. It was let's see, I don't know, the splines or the gears, whatever you want to call it, was meeting just the very edge of the inside of this pinion gear right here. So where those teeth start in there, that's where it was meeting, and it wasn't going any farther than that. It was still enough to grab, but not to get anything solid. So I brought with me a hammer and a mallet to try to get this thing set down. Basically, I can feel it go down, I can feel it grab, so I know the teeth are lined up right there. Perfect. And there's a snap ring in here that keeps it from going any farther. Now, time to put this stuff back on, and then the pump will fit, everything will bolt up back together. All right, this took me way too long to figure out, but this gap right here on the water pump leaves the gap for the shift rod to be able to move up and down. There's 4 holes that you can screw something into under here, so that's what was confusing me. I had this twisted all the wrong way and they weren't lining up. This is the correct way. Again, I don't know how it took me so long to figure that out, but it's lined up correct now. Next phase is I'm gonna put this in the water and test it, see if it's leaking anywhere, to make sure all the seals are good. All right, that's my little test here. Mostly worried about this seal. Moving the shaft up and down, there is no air coming through, so that's good. There's also no air bubbles working their way through from the bottom, so I'm not seeing anything down here. So that's the other good part. I think the seals are good, and I'm gonna go with it. I was right about this extension. This is not necessary if you have the longer shaft. So really, you don't even need to change this out. All you need is this extension piece right here. It's either one or the other. Definitely this is the easier way to do it, but still worth opening this up. So gotta swap this out, put the original one on. All right, I think I've done it. Got everything back in place. The only next step is to fill the lower end up with oil, and then I'm gonna stick it in a trash can and run it. It was difficult getting this lower end back on. Lining up the shaft was actually pretty easy. Lining up the shifter was not too hard. The hardest part by far was getting the water tube lined up. I ended up pulling, so I left this extension attached, left the lower end off. I put the water tube in as far as I could up here, and then when I put everything together, it all kind of fit together. I put the prop back on so that I could spin the shaft a little bit to get it lined up with the gears as it went in. That helped a lot. And at the end, I just kind of had to push it in, and it finally gave, and it had like maybe 1/8 of an inch right here that I tightened up. And I'm hoping that was just tightening the water tube into the little seat down in here in the pump.